You know, we have one of the renowned leaders in not just college sports, but sports that is with us today. And we're so thrilled that Dr. Dianne Murphy created the Leaders for Life program. It's a benefit for you. She created it for you as Tennessee Tech student athletes. And those of you that were here before and had an opportunity to hear her speak, she was in your shoes before. And she wants to provide you as Tennessee Tech female student athletes an opportunity to get a leg up. And that's why she created this program, for us to have renowned speakers and programs to help you. Not the folks in other OVC schools, you as Tennessee Tech student athletes. And we're thrilled tonight that Dr. Donna Lopiano is our guest. And the hair standing up on the back of my neck right now because I remember the first time that I met her personally. And that was when Dr. Bell and I had an opportunity to go to New York City, and we were in HBO studios on one of their stages, and Donna and Billie Jean King presented Tennessee Tech with one of the inaugural participation awards from the Women's Sports Foundation. And as a leader in intercollegiate athletics, she is a legend. Okay? She is a true legend. And read her bio. All you read her bio and go to the last paragraph. Look what she did as a student athlete. And she's continued what she did as a student athlete through her entire professional career. And she has now since left the Women's Sports Foundation and is on an enterprise on her own and just doing a great job helping college athletic programs and athletics in general. But she is a leader. She's a leader in Title IX. She's a woman in women's issues and intercollegiate athletics, but she's a leader in athletics in general. And I'm thrilled that and I'm humbled. I'm telling you, I'm humbled. She's on Tennessee Tech's campus. I am humbled that she's here at Tennessee Tech. She's here to share her wisdom and her knowledge with you as Tennessee Tech student athletes. And it's my great pleasure to introduce Dr. Donna Lopiano.
Thank you, thank you. Appreciate it. You know, I read this bio and it was very impressive. It was very impressive, but if the truth be told, I don't want you to remember anything that it says in here about me. If you were to remember one thing about me, I would want it to be the fact that I never got to do the thing that I most wanted to do in life, and that was to be a pitcher for the New York Yankees. And I don't want you to laugh at that, because from the age of 5 to the age of 10, every day after school, I would come home, I would get changed, my parents would shoo me out the door and say, you better be home before the street lights come on. And the first thing I would do is go and throw 500 pitches against, whoa. Can you guys hear? Yeah, I can probably talk louder, that's fine. I threw 500 pitches a day against the side of my parents' garage. Is that it? Okay. And by the time I was 10, I had a rising fastball, I had a curve that would break off the table. I was working, for those of you with no hair or gray hair, I was working on a Bob Turley drop, and that was a former pitcher for the New York Yankees. And I did this because I wanted to go through the first rite of passage for any future professional baseball player, and that was to play Little League Baseball. So I was 10, I went out for the Mickey Leone Little League, and there were about 100 kids trying out for Little League, and I was drafted number 1. And on the day you're drafted, you're assigned to a team, and you go through probably one of the most exciting times of your life, your first real team uniform. And I remember standing in line before an 8-foot table, and the uniforms were stacked up, and I looked at the uniforms and I said, this is an omen. This is an omen. I'm really going to be a Yankee, because my team colors were that navy blue, black, and white. The uniform tops were pinstripe. The hats were real wool, navy blue, black caps, and they weren't fake. They didn't have plastic adjusters on the back. You had to know your head size. And I can remember being 4th in line thinking, oh, am I a 7 1/4 or a 7 1/3? Or, you know, what's my head size? I've never had a real baseball cap on. And I'm standing there, and a very tall father came to stand beside me, and he had the Little League rule book in his hand, and he opened up the rule book, and on page 14 in the center of the page were 4 words that would change my life forever. And those words were, "No girls are allowed." Wasn't allowed to play Little League baseball, wasn't allowed to do the thing that I did best in life. And I think one of the reasons why I've done what I've done in life is no child should ever be told that they cannot pursue their dreams, whether they're male or female. And I want you to know that I speak a lot. I might speak 2 or 3 times a month. And I open every speech that I've ever given with that story. And invariably, most of my audiences are a little older than you. There's usually a 65 or a 70-year-old person who comes up to me at the end and says, "You know, Dr. Lopiano, I wanted to play second base for the Chicago Cubs." And I know she's never said that out loud to anybody before. And how many women really have gone through life wanting to be something, but being told that you can't do it? So one of the things I want to talk about is maybe to give us all a little perspective about how far women have come and how far we still have to go, not only in the world of sport, but what happens to you in life after sport. You are only the second generation of women who are the beneficiaries of Title IX, that federal law that mandated equal opportunity for women in education. And Title IX had nothing to do with intercollegiate athletics. Title IX was a law that would have allowed your grandmothers to live a different life. Before 1972, if your grandmother wanted to be a doctor or a lawyer, an engineer, and wanted to get into a graduate school, she couldn't get in. There were quotas on the number of women who were admitted to those schools. And unless your daddy gave the school the money to build that building, you couldn't get into those programs. The number of female attorneys in the United States was less than 7%. The number of female doctors in the United States prior to 1972 was less than 14%. Women were precluded from the most respected, highest paying professions in the United States. If you wanted to go to grad school, you can go, but you had to choose the caretaking professions that had the lowest salaries in the United States. So you could be a teacher, you could be a social worker, you could be a librarian and take care of books, you could be a nurse and take care of people, but that's what women were limited to doing. So your grandmother, I don't think your mothers, I get confused with how old kids are nowadays, but the fact of the matter is this law was about access to the professions. Along about 1974 or so, 2 years after Title IX passed, the NCAA had their attorneys in Washington, D.C. ask the question, does this apply to extracurricular activities? And the answer was yes. You may not realize this, but in 1972, guess what? Most women in the United States never played soccer, didn't play lacrosse, didn't play, they didn't have an opportunity to play baseball, they played a little softball. But there were so many sports that were considered to be unseemly for women. And women weren't allowed to play. So this was a sea change. And this sea change was such that it was really a big deal when Title IX came through. It precipitated headlines across the country. Football coaches gathered together. The president of the American Football Coaches Association was a guy named Darrell Royal, who was the head football coach at the University of Texas at Austin. And the headlines across the country were Title IX and women's sports would be the death of big-time football. Has football died? It hasn't. Have men's sports suffered? They have not. And let me say a few words about that before I get into this leadership thing that I want to talk about. You will hear many myths about what Title IX has done. And I want to tell you what it hasn't done. One of the myths is that somehow, if you give women the chance to play, that somehow men will be hurt, that somehow men are going to lose, that for every opportunity that you get, some male is going to lose an opportunity to play. And as proof of the pudding, the newspapers regularly report on dropped men's wrestling teams or dropped men's gymnastics programs. And I'm here to tell you that in 1972, when Title IX went into effect, there were about 3.6 million boys playing high school sports. That figure today is 4.5 million. So men's sport participation opportunities have continued to grow. Women had less than 300,000 high school opportunities to play in 1972, less than 300,000, and now they're up to 3.2 million. They still haven't gotten to the level of boys' sports opportunities at the high school level that were there in 1972. So men have not lost. As a matter of fact, in the last 6 out of the last 8 years, so in 6 of the last 8 years, in terms of new sports participation opportunities, more new sports opportunities have been added for men than for women in the United States, even though women are 1.3 million participation opportunities short of that afforded to men, and even though women are 50-50 in terms of the high school population. Same is true of colleges. So I just want you to understand that your success has not come at the expense of men, and you can't believe that when people say it. If men's sports are being dropped, they're being dropped because in this day and age, institutions are participating in an arms race. They're spending an exorbitant amount of money on 2 sports, football and men's basketball. Right now, in the highest Division I level of competition, the FBS schools, Football Bowl Subdivision schools, those schools are spending 78% of their men's operating budget, 78% of their men's operating budget on 2 sports, football and men's basketball. And the dregs are left to men's minor sports. They know they can't cut they know they can't cut women's sports because somebody's going to sue them because they're not giving women equal opportunity to play either. So when you hear about sports being dropped, they're being dropped to feed this fat goose of men's football and basketball. And you have to know that. You can't let people make you feel guilty about the opportunities you have. The other thing I want to tell you is I want to put your participation in sport in perspective. You are luckier than most young women growing up today. Let me give you some statistics. By the time a girl is 17 years old, she has seen 250,000 television commercials telling her she should be a sex object, a decorative object, or she should conform to a body size that she will never be able to achieve. 250,000 television commercials. By the time a young girl gets to grades 1 to 3, 41% of young girls say, I will be happier if I were thinner. If you look at girls who achieve the ages of 9 to 10, right, 51% of them say, I'm happier when I'm dieting. When you look at girls reaching the age of 13, right, 54% of them say, I am unhappy with my body. And by the time that young girl reaches the age of 17, 78% of them say they are unhappy with their bodies. They are living in a media culture, and there's no doubt, we live in a media society today that is putting a great deal of pressure on young women to be something that men want them to be. What you see on television, what you read in the newspapers, what you hear on the radio is predominantly determined by guys. Women get only 1.6% of all the sports coverage in the United States. 1.6%. Horses and dogs get 3.4%. You know, horse racing and dog racing. You know. But think about that. Why is that true? Only 6% of all the sports editors in the United States are female. 6%. When you look at the vice presidents of programming who are deciding what goes on television and deciding on sports coverage, guess who those people are? They're predominantly white male. So they put on television not what the results of research tell them should be on television. They put on television whatever it is that they like to watch. Research shows that what gets in your newspaper, what goes on television, is what the sports editor or the vice president of programming prefers to see. They are not taking polls of the public at all. And you might say to yourself, and you will hear this, another myth I don't want you to believe. Another myth is, well, men's sports get higher television ratings than women's sports, and that means that somehow the public is more interested in them than you. But if you don't get on television, you can't get television ratings. But what happens when the vice president of programming decides to put on the Olympic Games and there's women on television? What happens when the vice president of programming on ESPN decides to do the Women's World Cup? Guess what? The ratings are the same or equal to men. So you cannot be conned into thinking that somehow ratings are a result of public interest. They are not. And just for your own edification, this is what ratings are the function of. They're the function of three things. Do you choose to put the program on during prime time when most television sets are being turned on? If you put a program in that time slot, you will get a high rating. It's nothing to do with public interest. Is your television on? Do you put this program on during a predictable time and place? Monday night football, Sunday afternoon hockey, so people can remember when it is. And the third reason why you get high ratings is because the television station has promoted the heck out of it. Watch this. How many people know that the Kentucky Derby is this Saturday? You better know, because they're saying it every and that's how ratings are produced. So if you want television ratings, it's easy enough to get it, whether it's a men's or a women's event. But I digress. I gave you all those stats about the pressure on young women to be something that they're not, just to say that you're luckier than most women, because you are participating in the antidote to sexism. When you participate in sport, it's okay to have muscles. It's okay to have a big body. It's okay to be powerful. It's okay to be aggressive. It's okay not to dress in a sexy way. It's okay to do all those things. As a matter of fact, if you try to do all those things, you probably wouldn't be as successful as you are. And most of the performing arts have those benefits for women. Sport is a performing art. But even if you do music or dance or drama, women are relegated to sexist roles. One of my favorite singers is Beyonce. Why? Yours too, okay? But why does she have to be in the Super Bowl without her clothes on? Right, and you say to yourself, that's the function of our media culture. So you are really lucky that you're into sport. We know that girls who play sports have higher levels of confidence, greater self-esteem, stronger self-images. You're more likely to do well in non-traditional subjects for women. You've probably heard this myth, oh, men are better at math than women. Girls who play sports are better in math, better in science courses, better in all the STEM fields than their counterparts. And I say this to you too because we know that women who play sports are less likely to be sexually assaulted. 1 out of every 5 women who go to college in the United States are sexually assaulted while they're in college. And you guys are participating in an antidote that would make you less likely to be one of those statistics. So you're participating in a powerful, powerful thing. So I'm here to ask you to kind of pay it forward. You've been lucky enough to have parents who have encouraged you to play, to have coaches who are supporting the heck out of you playing, and who are supporting what you want to be, supporting your passion, a passion I wasn't allowed to pursue. And you know, we owe it to other women to do certain things to help them. And if there's anything I want you to leave with is maybe a little list of things that you can and should do going forward to help pay it forward. So let me start with the first one. The first one is I want you all to make sure that you follow your moral compass. What I mean when I say that is we all intuitively know the difference between right and wrong. I'm absolutely sure of that. And when someone speaks disrespectfully to a girl or speaks disrespectfully to a boy, it doesn't matter. When somebody tries to bully someone else, when someone calls somebody fat or a not good thing, you know that's wrong. Following your moral compass is being brave enough to say something whenever you see something that's wrong. Because if you're silent, people think you agree that that's right, and they continue the behavior. And it's not that you have to stand up and yell, that's wrong. That's not what I'm talking about. But even quietly saying something to a teammate or to somebody who is being disrespectful in whatever environment you're in will stop them from doing that. But if we don't speak up, if we don't follow our moral compass, then that's never going to happen. You guys, I know, because of your participation in sport, are more confident than most women. You're more capable, you're more capable of doing that than most women. And it would be an utter shame if you don't take that confidence and use it to benefit someone else. So 1, follow your moral compass. Second, I want you to think about believing that you have an obligation to help somebody else. That one of the things we can do going out of here is saying, I will not be selfish. I will go out and help someone else to be better because somebody helped you to be better. And let me see if I can give you an example of something like that. If you hear somebody saying, well, let me give you a great story. I go and I speak to young boys all the time. And my favorite audience in terms of young boys is junior high school boys, because they are not yet, they don't know what politically correct means, so they say anything. And I love speaking to them because I know the first thing that comes out of their mouth is going to be something like this. Dr. Lopiano, let's admit it. You know that boys are better athletes than girls. We jump higher, we dunk, we run faster, we're stronger, we are better athletes than girls, trying to put girls down. And I used to answer them. I used to answer them in a very technical way because, my degrees, I have a PhD and everything else. And I used to say, well look, boys can build up more muscle mass per unit volume of body tissue because of the male hormone androgen, and it would be unfair for boys and girls to participate against each other if you have more muscle mass, because all sport is a strength, speed, reaction time activity, and I should go in this, and their eyes would glaze over. And I said, no, this isn't exactly the right approach. But I finally figured out how to answer that question. And the answer to that question was, okay, you guys, who's a better athlete? Muhammad Ali, the great heavyweight boxer, or Sugar Ray Leonard, the great lightweight boxer? Who's the better athlete? And they would look at me and say, that's not fair, Dr. Lopiano. I mean, they're both great athletes. They shouldn't be fighting against each other. They're 2 different sizes. And I would say, duh. Do you mean that boys can have 8 weight classes in wrestling or in boxing and have 8 champions and 8 great athletes, and girls can't have 1? And they would finally get the deal that it's not fair for big kids to play against little kids. Or if you know that you have a strength advantage, to take advantage of that. So I want you to think about ways that you can help others. And one way is by denying these myths that go on. When you hear something that doesn't sound right, that sounds as if like, oh, girls aren't as interested in sports as boys, right? Who's going to stand up and defeat that kind of myth? You guys are. And I want you to believe that girls are just as interested in sports as boys, and boys do not have a corner on this market. They absolutely do not. let me see if I can make you think about that a little differently. Boys are taught from a very young age that they should be interested in sports. And it goes something like this. This is a true story. I have never had children myself. I have a nephew, and I can remember seeing him for the very first time. I visited my brother's house. My nephew is 2 weeks old. I walk in. My sister-in-law opens the door. I said, well, where's the kid? 2 weeks old, I want to see the kid. She looks up to the skies and she's watching the Giant game. I said, what, two-week-old kid is watching the New York Giant game? So I walk into the living room, and there's this 2-week-old child with a New York Giants t-shirt on already. There's a New York Giants Nerf ball on his lap. He's sitting on the lap of his father with a New York Giants t-shirt on. They're watching the New York Giants game, and whenever the New York Giants make a touchdown, his father vibrates with excitement. Now, I don't think anybody asked him yet whether he was interested in sports. I know that my nephew, by the age of 4, had a bedroom that was a palace of athletics privilege. He had every sport implement known to mankind sitting in his room. He had balls, he had gloves, he had lacrosse sticks, he had everything. Nobody had yet asked him whether he was interested in playing sports. There was an assumption that he was going to play sports. Fast forward another 10 years, now he's in high school. Turns out that my nephew is not an athlete. My nephew could be termed a motor moron. And that's not fair. That's not fair for me to even say that, but his hand-eye coordination is non-existent. I would try to have a catch with him in the backyard, and I would kill him. He would put his glove up and would hit him in the head. So he had no coordination whatsoever. He was not talented. He is now at Johns Hopkins University. He's a history and Italian major. He's a minor in music. He sings opera. That is his gift. It wasn't sports. But did he play high school football? Darn right he did. Was he interested in sports? No. But the football coach sees this 6'4" kid at 230 pounds, sees him in the hallway and says, you're going to be one of my starting linemen. I want to see you at practice at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And of course, Michael does the right thing. Michael goes to practice. He says, Coach, I've never played sports before. I've never played football. He says, it doesn't matter. You're going to be absolutely great. You knock him down, you lay on top of him, and you don't let him get up, and you're going to be a great lineman. And he was a great lineman in high school. But boys are not more interested in sports than girls. You grew up probably with a mother and father, or a mother or father, who loved sports and who let you play. And you grew up just like Michael, right? You were encouraged. You were given balls and gloves and everything else. So don't ever think that somebody has a corner on the market of their interest in sport. And we have to help young girls figure out how to pursue those dreams. And the way we help them is by telling them they can. Just like that coach said to Michael, right? He didn't ask, are you interested in sport? Would you like to play football? He said to Michael, yes, you can. So when you see a young girl who's good at math, you see a young girl who's good at dance, you see a young girl who's good at science, or anything, a young girl who's good at anything, you have to take that next step. And this is your leadership gift by saying, yes, you can. You're going to be really good at this. And we say yes, you can in many different ways. When we give presents to our nieces, do we give them a doll? Or do we give them a ball or a glove? Do we give them a book about female astronauts and female pilots and female scientists? Or do we give them a doll? It's okay to give them both, but as long as you do give them both. So telling a young girl, yes, you can, is really, really important. You probably give clinics to young kids during the course of a year as community service, right? It's so important for you to stop and say to every kid you're talking to, don't just teach them how to dribble a ball or pass a ball or whatever. Look them in the eye and say, you are really good. You should play high school sports. Or I think you'd be a great varsity player, because that's how kids make decisions about what they're going to do in life. So we all deserve this encouragement that we've received and not many young girls are getting in this society. So one is a moral compass. One is telling a girl she can by the gifts you give, by looking him in the eye and saying, yes, you can. A third thing I want you to consider doing is we are all going to encounter discrimination in our lives. You may not feel it yet, but I guarantee you that you will be discriminated against because you're a woman. It may be a lower salary in your first job. It may be that you're a math major and one of your counselors said to you, did you ever think maybe economics would be more in line for you than physics? It may be subtle, it may be overt, but you're going to get discriminated against somehow. I can almost guarantee you. Whenever that happens, we have to believe that we can stop that we can be agents of change. You may go back to your high school where you graduated from, and you may see that girls aren't getting the same uniforms as boys are. They're not playing in prime time. You can say something. I just was at an event in Shelton, Connecticut yesterday, and it was a bunch of parents who did an awards program for girls. And I got to hold of the committee, and I said to the committee, I said, how did you guys get to do this? And one of the parents says, well, I'm a thorn in the side of the athletic director. I noticed that the girls' softball team wasn't getting the same uniforms as the boys' baseball team. And I went up to the athletic director and I said, how come the girls aren't getting the same uniforms? And he changed. He got girls the same uniforms. Don't assume that people are discriminating against women because they intentionally are bad people. They don't even think about it. They're just used to discriminating against women. It's part of our culture that we treat boys in sport better than we treat girls in sport. And it's not going to change unless we say something. So if you are going to make a difference in life, if you're going to change discriminatory behavior, you have to voice the need for change. And I want to say one thing about this voice. It doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't have to be a loud voice, especially if you like talking softly. But it has to be a powerful voice. And I want you to know what a powerful voice is. A powerful voice isn't giving your opinion. We live in a society where on your PDFs, you give your opinion every 2 seconds. You text message to your friends, I hate this, I like this. Those are lightweight opinions. That's lightweight information. Anybody can do that, right? Heavyweight opinions, the way people change are when you throw around factual information. The information I just gave you about the number of girls who watch television advertisements telling them that they have to be sex objects. Those numbers are heavyweight bullets. So when you're going to fight discrimination, when you're going to fight unfair treatment, you have to be specific, not opinionated. You have to give facts as to why something is wrong. And you have to learn to storytell how this is hurtful for people. Imagine if you were able to throw those facts out to a father with a young daughter. Do you think he would act differently in life and make sure his daughter didn't get discriminated against, or she wasn't more likely to be a sex object? So you have to speak out against discrimination, and you have to play heavyweight ball. Now, at your age, you're not very powerful. No matter what you say, even if you throw out facts, chances are people aren't going to listen to you like they're going to listen to me. So one of the keys to making change is if you don't have power, you got to figure out who does and make friends with them and have them say what you want to say. And you people, you are in a good position to know people who are powerful. So figure out who is it that can make change. You feed them the heavyweight information and you say, will you help me? Will you help me change this? But it means you have to ask somebody. It means you have to care enough to make a difference. and it means you have to care enough to want to play heavyweight ball. Let me tell you, it's much more fun to win when you play heavyweight than it is to lose, just like you feel in sport. I'll give you a great example. When I first went to the Women's Sports Foundation, after I was an athletic director, I became CEO of the Women's Sports Foundation. And I can remember meeting with my staff the first time, and I was looking at statistics like this. But I was looking at research that said girls who play sports lower their risk for breast cancer, for heart disease, and I went through a litany of what all the research says about girls who play sports. And I said, okay, you guys, one of the real rules of making change is not only do you have to have heavyweight facts like these, but you have to have persistence over time. That means you have to keep saying those facts again and again and again. You can't be so arrogant as to think you're going to say something once and I'm going to change. Are you kidding me? Who are you? Think about that for a second. Very few people change because one person said something to them at one point in time. But if you keep saying it, if you keep hearing it, all of a sudden you get to critical mass. So we decided among our staff that we were going to say the same 4 facts wherever we went. They were going to be in press releases. When we went to visit members of Congress, we would say those 4 facts. Whenever we talked to the media, we would say those 4 facts. We would teach those 4 facts to all champion female athletes. And we would have all champion female athletes, when they spoke to other people, say those 4 facts. And I can remember about 2 years after I went to the Women's Sports Foundation, we went to Washington, D.C. To celebrate National Girls and Women in Sport Day, and we went to a reception on the Hill. And there were members of Congress, and the Surgeon General of the United States stepped up to the microphone to give a speech about National Girls and Women in Sports Day. And she opened the speech with the 4 facts that we had put on the table 2 years before. Exactly the same language. And it was a function of being persistent over time. If something is wrong, you cannot change it instantly. It is not going to change instantly. You have to keep at it over and over again. Look at Title IX. When Title IX happened in 1972, just because that law passed, everybody in the country didn't just say, oh, now we support women in sport. It wasn't that way at all. As a matter of fact, there were a lot of people in the country who were really mad about that law. And you have to understand how change works. Change goes through 4 stages. The first reaction to change is anger. Somebody thinks they're going to lose something. And all the boys who were in sport thought they were going to lose something. Right? The second stage of change is retribution. Not only are they angry, they're going to get back at you. If you bring up Title IX, I'm going to fire you. You bring up Title IX, something's going to happen to you. And then, after a while, if you keep at it, the third stage of change is acceptance. All of a sudden, people start getting it. And the 4th stage is celebration. You have heard about the 40th anniversary of Title IX, and how people are celebrating Title IX, and how they're giving awards on it. That's how long it takes for people to go through these stages of change. So in the first year, 90% of the population is angry, and there's 10% that is celebrating, right? 10 years later, it's 80% and 20. 15 years later, the percentages change. Most people think it takes almost 3 generations, 60 years to make change. So the message there is what? You have to keep at it. If something is wrong, it's wrong, and you have to say something over and over and over again. And you guys can, it's like basic skills in basketball. Once you learn to dribble, do you never practice dribbling again? No, you dribble every practice. You practice basic skills every day. It's kind of the same thing if you want to make change. 4th thing I want you to understand is, because you are in sport, you have a built-in army. You aren't playing alone. You aren't going it alone. Change, helping others, it's so much easier when you don't have to do it alone. You have a built-in advantage in that you have a team already. In fact, guys are really good at developing their support networks. And they've done this for years and years and years. Another example, I can remember going to Michael, my questionable athlete. I remember going to his first T-ball game. He could barely hit the ball off the tee, but he had to go through this rite of passage for boys. And so I go to the first T-ball game, and my mother and father are sitting in lawn chairs. His mother and father are sitting in lawn chairs. Everybody's watching these little kids play T-ball, right? And it's the first T-ball game of the season, and the coach says to all of these 6-year-old, 5-year-old boys, line up against the fence. Line up against the fence. They all line up against the fence. And the coach says, men, we're about to start our season. And I want you to know that not everybody can start. We can only have 9 players on the field, and there are going to be a whole bunch of you guys that have to sit the bench. But we're a team. We're going to support each other. The players on the bench are just as important as the players who are starting. And every time a young male goes into sport, he hears that speech. We take care of each other. And from day one, they are taught to help each other, to network, to be an army for the rest of their life. There's no reason why every single woman in this room can't look around and stay in touch with every other woman in this room so that you have your own army. Not only to help you when you have a cause, like fighting discrimination, but when you need help to get a job, when you need help to do anything in life, you're better off having 100 allies than you are not having any friends at all. And guys have this work to a T. As a matter of fact, you'll go into jobs and you'll see, you won't understand it. Here you are, you'll be employed, and there's invariably this one guy, and I don't mean to sound sexist, although this is a little sexist, whatever, but there's invariably one guy who you can't understand what he does. He's not very good at what he does. He's not making a contribution to the team. Everybody admits he's not very good. He's like in left field. But nobody will say, let's get rid of this guy. Nobody will say, let's fire the guy. And you know intuitively that if you said it, somebody would say, boy, she's a bitch. That something would be wrong with you. What guys do for each other is they trade that person to another team. They never fire them. Think about it. They find that guy another job. And that's what having an army and depending on an army does. You guys have to help each other just like that. And then the last thing I want you to do is to practice the illusion of confidence. And if sport hasn't taught you this, I don't know what other performing art does this. Whenever you try to help somebody or to change the world, you have to act confidently, because then you'll be viewed as powerful and people will want to listen to you. And I'm here to tell you, you don't have to really be confident. All you have to do is practice the illusion of confidence. Even the greatest players in the world, when they get up to the foul line to shoot a foul shot with the game on the line, you think they aren't nervous? They are nervous. It's just that they've learned not to show it. And when you do big things in life, you are always nervous. And what you learn in sport is to accept it, not to worry about it, not to focus on it, but to concentrate on the illusion of confidence. I remember when I learned that in sport. I was 16 years old. I was playing for the Rebestos Breakettes. It was a softball team, national championship softball team. I was the youngest kid on the team. It was an outside team, wasn't a college team. I tried out for this team. I remember going to my first practice, and I was playing shortstop, right? And we were taking batting practice, and the very first hit during batting practice was a one-hop line drive to my right, and I dove to my right, laid out kind of, horizontal to the ground. I made a backhand stab. I struggled to my feet. I rifled the ball across to first base. It was probably the greatest play that I had ever made in my entire life. And I was waiting for my teammates to say something. Like, nice play. Something, anything. It was really a spectacular play. And this second base person starts walking toward me. And I'm saying, here it comes. She's going to say, nice play. She comes up to me and she says, Lopiano, she says, on this team, we never make anything look hard. I said, what do you mean? That was hard. That was really hard. That was a great play. She says, let me say it again, she said. We never make anything look hard because then people are going to think we're lucky, right? You make it look like you could do this any day of the week. And bless you, I did not know what that meant. I really didn't understand what that meant. I went through this whole season. I would make something look hard. They would yell at me. And I can remember at the end of the season, I got to be a pitcher. And there was the moment that I really learned what it meant. I was pitching in the first game of a national championship. The first pitch out of my hand was a fat pitch. A fat pitch is like you make a mistake and you know that this pitch can be hit out of the ballpark. That's how bad of a pitch it was. And as soon as it left my hand, I knew it. I said, oh my God. It's about halfway. How many of you have been in a car accident? You know how time gets really slow? It's like everything happens in slow motion. This was what was going on. Everything slowed down. The pitch was halfway there, and I said to myself, Donna, maybe she's going to take the first pitch. You know how you take the first pitch, you just look at it? So I looked at her eyes, and I saw her eyes get as big as saucers, and I said, nope. I don't think she's going to take the first pitch. I said, Donna, why don't you take your glove and put it up in front of your teeth? This would be good. And so I was putting the glove up in front of my teeth, and I was kind of making myself really small. And she swings the bat, and she hits it right on the nose, and she hits it right back at me, and I do what any future All-American would do. I ducked. I ducked, and then I immediately turned around to see where the ball was because I would have to cover a base or something like that. And the ball was not in the outfield. And I said to myself, I wonder if I caught it. But I have to make this look easy. I can't make this look hard, so I can't look at my glove. I have to assume I caught it, and I have to be nonchalant. So I looked the batter in the eye. She was one step out of home plate. Looked her in the eye, reached into my glove, pulled the ball out, and tossed it to my first baseman. You know, they can throw it around the horn, you know. And she was just aghast, nonchalant. The ball goes around, you know, second, shortstop, third, comes back to the first base person who walks the ball over to me again, and she kind of hands the ball to me and she says, did you know you heard that? And I said, hell no. But it was the illusion of confidence. And don't think that illusion is any different than how you have to act when you go in to interview for a job or to stand up for someone who is more powerful than you are. It's about the illusion. It's about playing a role that says, I am a confident person. And that's what leaders do. It's not, you know, the stuff that's in here, it's not because somebody got born with different genes. It's about somebody who has a moral compass, who helps somebody else out, you know, who really thinks it's important to pay it forward, who thinks that they can practice the illusion of confidence and master facts and stand up and argue for something that's right. And all of you can do that because you've been playing sports. You have received those gifts. Let me close with a story, and then maybe let me do questions first. Do you guys have questions? What do you want to know? You know, how I got to play 26 national championships? They asked me that when I first came up here. How could you be eligible for 4 years and play 26 national championships? When I was growing up, there were no national championships for women in colleges and universities. There were no scholarships for women. So I played on non-school teams. like AAU basketball, USVBA volleyball, ASA softball. So that's how I did that. But what other questions do you have? She talks a lot. She talks a lot. I'll tell you. She talks a lot. So you just want to hear the closing story? How many track kids are here? Okay, all right. So I'm at a banquet about a month ago, right? And this banquet is in Austin, Texas, and it's honoring the high school male and female basketball player of the year. Okay, and I'm sitting on the dais. I'm going to be the guest speaker, and to my right is a 6-year-old girl who is the sister of the female recipient of this award. And I, Dr. Lopiano, I'm going to start a conversation with this 6-year-old. I turn to the 6-year-old. I say, "Do you play sports?" And she says, "Yep." So, "Well, what sport do you play?" She says, "Track." It's like pulling teeth. I'm just trying to start a conversation here. And so I said to her, "Well, what event do you do? Do you run? Do you jump? Do you throw? What's your event?" And she said, "I run the 800 meters. Now, if you're in track, you would say, "Oh, no 6-year-old runs an 800 meters. So for those of you who are not in track, your high school track is a 400-meter track. It's a quarter mile, right? The 800 is running twice around that track as fast as you can and then dying at the finish line. That's the 800. So to say that this 6-year-old ran the 800 was like mind-boggling, right? Absolutely mind-boggling. So I decided, you should know this, if you're a 400-meter runner in track and you get recruited to a college and you're visiting the college and the coach says to you, "I know you're a 400-meter runner, but I think you'd make a better 800-meter runner," you don't go to that college. That's the kind of an event it is. So I decided I'm going to ask her sister. I go down the dais and I say, "Does your little sister really run the 800 meters?" And this young woman says, "Yes, absolutely." And I said, "Well, how did she get to do that?" She said, "Simple. My brother, I have a twin brother, he runs the 800 meters. I run the 800 meters. We have track practice on Saturday mornings. My mother works on Saturday mornings. We have to bring our little sister, and she's the rabbit. So what they do is they give her a 1-lap head start. She's the rabbit, and they have 2 laps to catch up to her." So I said to her sister, I said, "Now I understand. Now I understand. Now I know why your sister runs the 800 meters." And this woman, she looks at me, she says, "No, you don't, Dr. Lopiano. She runs the 800 meters because nobody told her she couldn't, and we told her she could." Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
And we have a small token of our appreciation that hopefully when you head back east, that forever.
We need this back east, blankets.
Yes, you do. Tennessee Tech will be in your heart and mind. Just something to say thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I'll fold that back up for you.
I will. Thank you.
And ladies, I hope you really understand, what a privilege it was for you to have her here visiting about her experiences. Because we are the beneficiaries of work that she has done. And I encourage you to come up here, introduce yourself to her, tell her who you are, and get to know her, because Donna is heartfelt. She is genuine. And we don't have legends, and I mean that. We don't have legends come to our campus very often. And today we're honored that she has joined us. So
thank you for having me.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Donna.
Appreciate it. Thanks.